You're listening to the Full Court Press with your host, Drew Duncan. Don't you dare touch that dial. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. We're live on 99.5 ESPN Radio. As always, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Drew Duncan 83. You can also call in at 620-343-6143. That's 620-343-6143. Guys, I have been telling you all day yesterday about one of our guests that is calling in today, the first and a long line of local people right here in Emporia. He is a man that needs no introduction, as he has been a part of this community since 2007. He is the head football coach for the ESU Hornets. Everybody, please welcome to the program, Coach Garin Higgins. Coach, I want to tell you, it is a real treat to have you on the program today, sir.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And if I may, I've been wanting to do this. I didn't know how you'd feel about it. I wanted to ask you a question about the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's because you as a head coach are faced not only with weekly decisions in game, but every day in terms of difficult choices to make. And I believe that Andy Reid had one of the most difficult decisions to make of the year for any team in the NFL when he decided to release Alex Smith and bring up Patrick Mahomes. What is your thought on that situation? Can Mahomes lead the Kansas City Chiefs to the promised land?
Well, I mean, I probably, I don't know if I can answer that in a way that's going to give you, I mean, my personal opinion about it. I think that they would not have made that decision. They must have felt comfortable with, bringing Patrick Mahomes up and kind of establishing him as going to be the next guy. So that's, when you're in the NFL, it's such a business, and those general managers, they got to, and the head coach, those guys got to make those decisions. And you can go back to when the Green Bay Packers, let Brett Favre go, and they were established. They were going to say, hey, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy. Well, they made the right decision. So, they must feel pretty confident in Patrick Mahomes being able to be the guy.
Coach, I want to give you a quote here from Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops specifically said, "The thing about winning is everybody thinks it's easy, and it's not." End quote. A couple of years ago, you had an 11-2 season. Last year, 6-5. But you've got a lot of guys coming in this year for returning starters, 9 defensively, 8 offensively, if I remember correctly. What do you love about the leadership for this team, and how do you plan to get back into that winner circle, so to speak?
Well, I think if with our leadership, I think it starts with anytime you have a quarterback that's a returning starter, and Braxton Marshall, who will be a 3-year starter for us. I think it starts there. I think you just spoke about the quarterback position, for the Chiefs, and that's one of the positions that I feel like that if you're going to have success, especially in the MIAA, you need to have a veteran at that spot. And, with our team, we were a good football team last year, and sometimes that happens in the MIAA where it's such a competitive league, very tough, that you might be 6-5, but be 1 to 2 plays away from being 8-3. And, you can say that every year. I mean, even the year that, in 2016 when we went 11-2, there were games there that we won. We had 8 fourth-quarter comebacks in that season. Well, last year, we lost 2 games literally to the last play of the game. And the thing that I liked about our guys is that we rebounded well. A lot of times when you lose those games the way that we did, it can really be detrimental to the team. And I think if we didn't have any leadership at that time, that we wouldn't have been able to fight through it. And I think that's just carried over. I look for that to carry over. We feel like we've established a program here. We feel like we've established a culture and, a standard in the way that we do things. Our players that are here have been here for, we try to cultivate those guys and bring them in as freshmen and redshirt them and then bring them up, raise them throughout the program so they know exactly how things are done. And if things are done correctly, it's going to be passed down by previous veterans. So, I feel pretty confident in our leadership. I feel confident in how our players are going to respond. I mean, they were disappointed last year being 6-5, which again tells me when you're disappointed in being 6-5 and having a winning season in the MIAA that your program is you have set a standard in your program and your guys are trying to reach it each and every year.
We're talking to Coach Higgins right here on the Full Court Press, 99.5 ESPN Radio. I'm your host, Drew Duncan. Speaking of freshman recruits, look, Coach, I am not a guy that is really for stats, but this stat just absolutely blows my mind. Will Amos led his team to a national champion, a state title, 39 carries, 400 yards, and 6 touchdowns out of Afton, Oklahoma. What is it that you love the most about Will Amos?
Well, that stat. I mean, he's a dominant player. I mean, he also had a fumble recovery and an interception.
Whew. So
we can add that to it. And I think he rushed for, actually, it was 467 yards, somewhere around there. I mean, that's, it's a small Class A school in Oklahoma. But, the way I look at it, it's also a state championship game. So very rarely do you have that type of domination in the state championship game. Now, there might be a game where you play somebody that's not very good, at that level, and you just totally dominate. You're just totally a dominant team, and they can't – you got one player that's basically better than everybody else. But this kid did it in, the state championship game, and he rushed in the playoff games alone, and we saw basically 3 out of 4 of his playoff games. And I think the first one that we went and watched, he rushed for 287, and then the other 2 that we watched, he was clearly over 300 yards rushing in the other games. And he plays quarterback too, so he's a very good athlete. He's also going to be a dual sport athlete here. He's also a great 800-meter runner and a 400-meter runner. He actually, his first time that he ran a 400, which is about, I think, 2 weeks ago, he ran a 49.5 or somewhere right around in that. So, yeah, he's a guy that you definitely, when you go out recruiting, I mean, it's not all about statistics, like you said, but I think if you look the way how he played, not only through the regular season but the playoffs, is pretty impressive, and I'm glad he decided to be a Hornet.
Man, that play where I saw him on YouTube where he basically ran all over. You know what I'm talking about, too, don't you?
I know.
He cut down the cross and then back across the field again and eluded everybody. And the thing about it that I noticed the most, though, Coach, was the stamina. He did not look tired once he got to the end zone. How do you intend to maybe instill some of that in his players, or is he just that gifted of an athlete?
Well, he's gifted. I mean, he's a gifted player, and I think, again, the track helps him. He's like I said, he's a state champion 400-meter runner, state champion 800-meter runner, so he's got the stamina. Both those are very tough. To run in those races, you got to have some mental toughness because those are pretty tough. And you're right. I would have wanted to sign him and recruit him based off, that play alone that you're talking about. I mean, that was impressive in itself. He could have rushed for 150 yards, and 80 of that could have been that play right there, and that was impressive, the way that he made guys miss. And that's what you want. You want guys that are going to jump off the screen, and at the same time, you want to find that guy too. And I think we've done a really good job of finding guys who are going to fit in here at Emporia State. I think it's not. There might be great players out there, but it may not be a fit here. And he's a fit here. He's small town. Comes from a small country school in Oklahoma. So those guys, they are excited about Emporia State, and that's what I'm always interested in. I'm interested in finding guys that want to be a part of our football program for the right reasons.
Speaking of guys that he may be running behind, Xavier Carson, Aaron Clark at offensive line, it's one of those positions that gets lost, Coach. But what do you see specifically in Carson and Clark that you really love the most about him?
Well, I think if you look at those two guys, one, I think, Clark is 6'6", over 300 pounds. Kaysen's about 6'3". His brother actually 6'4". His brother plays on our football team too. He's probably 280, 285, somewhere in that range. I think if you look at both those players, they were guys that really, we always knew about Xavier just because his brother played here. And when we first started recruiting him, we were recruiting him as a defensive end. And then the other kid, we basically, he was at our summer camp and noticed him that he was big framed. I think both those guys have a huge upside. I don't think they've nearly reached their full potential. And a lot of times when you find offensive linemen, especially at our level, they're guys that, that might have to grow into that position and develop into that position, because the ready-made guys, especially on the offensive line, they're going to go to a higher level. So if you look at Xavier, he played defensive end and played basketball, so we look at him as being somebody that's very athletic, is mobile, can move, and he's now just starting to put on weight and get bigger. For those guys to get into our strength and conditioning program, and again, like I said earlier, cultivate those guys and cultivate those guys in our strength conditioning program to where after their redshirt year, whether it be their redshirt freshman year, their redshirt sophomore year, they're ready to begin to step in and have a role on the team.
We're talking to Coach Higgins right here on the Full Court Press, 99.5 ESPN Radio. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Coach, the spring football game is coming up this Saturday. Every coach, I think, looks for something different, and every coach also looks for a lot of the same things. What are the big things that you look for that you think maybe separate yourself from other coaches in your spring game?
Well, I don't know if there's anything that separates myself from any other coaches. I think, the one thing that we look at is I always think that's a time for our younger players that do not have very much experience to get a little bit of a game type feel of how it's going to be like on Saturdays. So I'm always interested to kind of see how they function at that level, because, we can do things in practice, where we have what we call competition periods or MTXE periods, and it's, we go against offense versus defense in a live drill, but it's not the same as really having fans in the stands, having a clock running, having a PA announcer announcing their name on the tackle or their name, as on a reception or whatever it might be. I think I'm always interested in how those young players are going to kind of respond in that arena. And then, with your veteran guys, I think they want to improve their craft and get better, but at the same time, I want to come out of the spring game. I want to come out of that game healthy. And I want it to be a clean, I want it to look like, cause we'll be mixing and matching some guys sometimes, and, it may not always look the best, as far as how things are functioning, but we want to be able to function at a high level. We want it to be a clean spring game. We're going to have officials there too as well. And, we want to eliminate, I'm sure there's going to be mistakes. There's always going to be mistakes made, but we want to eliminate the big mistakes and just look like a team that, has improved, from last year. And then at the same time, like I said, be able to get an evaluation of our younger players that were redshirted last year and guys maybe that didn't have a big role on the team that now might get that opportunity, just kind of see how they respond in a game-type atmosphere.
There it is, everybody. Coach Higgins right here on 99.5 ESPN Radio, the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Coach, what I do with all of my guests is at the end of every interview, I love for them to just say whatever it is that's on their mind. So anything that you would like to throw out there, the floor is 100% yours, sir.
You put the pressure on me.
Game time decision,
What's on my mind is that we have 2 practices left, and I want to stay healthy, and I want to make sure that it'd be nice if we got some great weather. I feel like a weatherman during spring football.
Well, maybe if this wind dies down, you can find out what your quarterbacks are made of.
Hey, we've not had the best of weather, but it is what it is. That's why it's football. It's outdoor sport, we've been practicing like it's November and playoff weather, so I guess that's a good thing. But, I'd like to have a good day of weather, so that's one of the things that's on my mind a lot, is I'm always looking at the weather app. And then also, hey, you know what? Hey, also I'm excited about having a big crowd. I mean, for all our spring games, we've always had a great turnout, and hopefully we have another big turnout on Saturday to, watch the Hornets.
Coach Higgins, I want to tell you it was a real treat having you on the program, and I do appreciate you taking time out of your ever busy schedule to talk to us. I know your mind is predominantly on that spring football game coming up this Saturday, so I really do appreciate it.
Drew, I appreciate you having me on, and look forward to meeting you in person sometime.
Sounds great to me. All right, everybody, that was Coach Garin Higgins right here on 99.5 ESPN Radio. This is the Full Court Press. I am Drew Duncan. 620-343-6143 is the call-in. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. We'll be back right after this. Don't you dare touch that dial.